Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Well. Silverstone 2025. Let's talk about it, shall we? Welcome to the podcast. I am joined by Minton. He is here. He is brown. He is beautiful. How are you, mate? You good? You kind of we got brown. I'm wearing red. We've got TOMMO'S Racing Goods cap, pink background. This is an aesthetic situation going on right now. Welcome everyone live on YouTube, everyone watching after the fact on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the rest. We have a mad British Grand Prix to talk about. Mad. Chaos. If you are here live on YouTube, I do have a poll asking for your race rating out of 10. Currently, it's neck and neck between a 10 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10, both with 38% of the votes. 19% of you gave this one an 8, and 5% of you gave this a 7 or lower. Big score, big Grand Prix, long race, many a safety car. Many a VSC as well. It was a worldie in terms of length, in terms of chaos anyway. We had a winner. We had 19 losers, I guess. We had 5 DNFs. We had a lot going on. And we're going to get all into it, chatting for about an hour and a half or so. I reckon we'll go to midnight UK time. It's 10:30 PM right now. I reckon we'll go to midnight and then I'll be too shattered and I'll just collapse and then the stream will end. How you doing, Minter? He's playing good. He's playing good on my shoulder. For now, anyway. We'll keep him up here for the time being. Starting with race rating out of 10 then. Okay, so it is still neck and neck. Your split between 38%. I would say that's probably averaging out your score. You're averaging about it's more than a 9, isn't it? It's like a 9.1, 9.2, something like that you're averaging for this Grand Prix. I'm not be too popular, but for me, and I've got 2 main reasons for this. I've given the 2025 British Grand Prix a 4 out. I'm joking. I've given it an 8, which is still great. And a big reason is that geezer right there in the picture, which we'll get onto. Couple of things. It was so stop-start at the start. Safety car, VSC, someone crashing. Safety car comes out again. Bortoleto crashes. Then he keeps going. Then he has to stop. It was annoying at times at the start. It didn't flow. Yes, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of chaos. But it really did, especially at the start of the Grand Prix. It was better towards the middle and the end, but at the start it was very, very stop-start, which was a bit, Also, it's always kind of annoying when a win is dictated by a time penalty, which, again, we will get into. And there wasn't that wheel-to-wheel battle scrap for the win, was there? We didn't see the McLarens locking horns on track. We saw plenty of locking horns throughout the race, don't get me wrong. It was very entertaining. Maybe 8's harsh, maybe I should have given it a 9. But, I don't know, the stop-start nature at the start of it really bugged me. I was like, oh my days, come on, bro, really? And I get it, right? It's mad conditions, okay? I'm not having to put the drivers. I'm not saying I could do any better, trust me. But I'm just saying as an entertainment piece, you know, It annoyed me in too many moments, although it thrilled me in many others. So I'm going 8. I'm sticking by it. I'm happy with that. Either way, banger. 8 is still a banging score, by the way. Okay, 8 is. Some people would be like, give 7 as an average. No, 5 is average. 8 is way above average. This is a very, very memorable British Grand Prix. The heavens opened, and you might complain about our weather, but our weather leads to banging F1 races. It's quite interesting as well, even though I don't live anywhere near Silverstone. Whenever it started raining on track, it started raining here. Even though I'm like, probably to drive to Silverstone is probably 75 miles, something like that from where I live. I just thought that was a weird coincidence. Every time I saw it rain on track, I could hear the rain coming, and then it stopped. And it stopped on track as well. it's kind of... Anyway, it was just meant to be, clearly. Just meant to be. Oh, look, 39% of you are giving it a 9 now. Clearly, me giving it an 8 has biased some of you to go slightly lower. So 9 out of 10 wins for you lot. I've given it an 8. I'm happy with that. I'm very satisfied with that. But there's plenty to talk about. Not just the Sunday race, is it? We need to talk about qualifying first and foremost. On the Saturday, all-rounder and, of course, OBS Studio has disconnected. And now it's reconnected. Because that's what happens on these race CHINWAGs. We disconnect, we reconnect, we carry on. And listen, first runs of Q3, Max was P4, I want to say. Oscar went quickest. Lewis was up there as well. Very, very close. And it was very, very close in the end. But I tell you what, Max clutched up once again, purple sector 1, purple sector 2. Didn't need a purple sector 3 and got it done by over a tenth, which ended up being a pretty big gap. That gap between Max and Oscar in P2 was bigger than the gap between Oscar and Lewis in P5, I want to say, or maybe even Charles in P6. Either way, very, very, very close. And this is a long circuit as well, by the way, so there's plenty of opportunity to gain and lose time. The fact that them top 6 were so close is actually insane around a track as long as Aston. I know with my quality head-to-head, some of you criticise it should be percentage gaps, and I get it, but percentages don't really mean anything. They don't communicate the same as, you know, time deltas. But regardless, for the top 6 to be split by such a small margin, incredible. In terms of over a lap qualifying in Formula 1, it is better than it's ever been, okay? Better than it's ever been right now. And if the stream is struggling, by the way, give it a refresh and that should sort it out. Better than ever over a lap. Unfortunately, in the races, the dirty air has crept its way in. But when it's conditions like it was today, that's less of a factor. You've got different lines. You've got people making mistakes. There was a lot going on. Again, not all of it great. Some of it annoying, which is why I've given it an 8 out of 10. Minton, what are you doing? Come on. There we go. Some of it annoying, but... You're being annoying, aren't you? No, I think you've just got ants in your pants. I think it's time for Minton to say goodbye. So say bye to your wonderful, adoring, loyal fans. As you... You're so tired. He had a proper little zoomy moment like about an hour ago while I was downstairs updating the quality head-to-head spreadsheet because I'm an intelligent human who uses spreadsheets. Right. He's off. Farewell. I'm going to see you, Mum. Good boy. Okay. Why is he so sleepy? Maybe it's because dogs sleep a lot and it's really warm in here and it's 20 to 11. That's my guess. But hey, I'm pretty sleepy as well. I was up early this morning. Shout out JB. Had a nice round of golf this morning. Loved it. Anyway, I digress. Quality results, unbelievable job from Max Verstappen. Clutch as per, up there with his Suzuka lap. You can argue, you know, a lot of drivers, Oscar, Lando, Lewis, you know, made mistakes in that final sector. There was definitely the opportunity for multiple other cars to take it. Max just did what he had to do. He had that low downforce set up on the car, which was always going to be risky if the British weather decided to British weather, which it did. If it had stayed dry, you know, having a low downforce setup would always stand you in good stead over a race distance because, you know, DRS trains are a thing, dirty air is a thing. So having that straight line advantage would pay dividends more than having high downforce. In contrary, if it rains, you need downforce to push the car into the ground, to give you more traction, to make it easier. And it was very clear, wasn't it, in the race? It was very clear and obvious that Max's Red Bull was running quite a bit less downforce than most of the cars around it. Like, there were many a moment where that became pretty objectively clear. But, and no, it wasn't with Jenson Button. He was busy being on the broadcast. Cars with JB. Come on, the proper JB. In terms of what else in quali, obviously Antonelli, P7, took a 3-place grid drop from last week. Ollie Behrman, P8 in qualifying. Great job from Ollie, but did such a dumb error, such a misjudgment. It's not even an error, it's a miss. It's just silly. What is he doing? Why is he pushing that hard when there's a red flag going into the pits? It's bad enough to be pushing that hard going into the pits anyway. To then lose the car, to lock the brakes, you wipe out £250,000 worth of front wing and nose cone, and you give yourself a 10. Now, again, he somewhat atoned for it by getting the P8 in qualifying, but Ollie's great. He's rapid, but damn, he is rough around the edges. And you know what? We saw a lot of the rookies come unstuck. We saw them all come unstuck this weekend because Ollie's actually the only one who finished the race, spoiler alert. And conditions like this, it separates the experienced heads from the less so. You know what I mean? So Ollie did a good job in qualifying, but I mean, and we'll look at the constructors in a bit, right? Because Haas did not have a good weekend from a constructor's point of view. Fernando Alonso P9, Pierre Gasly P10. Fantastic job from Pierre. Just about got out Q1, then just about squeezed into Q3. Unbelievable job from Pierre. And then Carlos, Yuki. Christian was saying afterwards he had some power issues on his push lap. There was a lot more positivity coming from Christian around Yuki's performance, at least in qualifying. Felt like he found something, and it was a shame that Yuki perhaps didn't quite have the power available to him to get out of Q2. So I hope that's true, because we're all here for Yuki coin, right? We're all here for it. Albon, Ocon, Lawson, Bortoleto, Stroll, Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg, P19 in qualifying, behind Gabby. Both Saubers out in Q1. Wasn't looking like a good weekend after quali. And then Franco Colapinto, P20 after crashing in the final corner. Difficult weekend for Franco. Very, very difficult weekend for Franco Colapinto. So, what does that mean for the head-to-heads? Well, let's get into it. 14 out of 30 qualifying sessions are done so far this year. 24 normal qualifying sessions, 6 sprint qualies, and not a huge amount of movement here in terms of order, at least. So Verstappen Tsunoda is still the biggest, come down ever so slightly, 0.668 of a second. Then Alonso ahead of Stroll is the second biggest on average, 0.316, just ahead of Russell over Antonelli, 0.315, so 1,000th in that. Then P4, it's Gasly ahead of Colapinto, 0.274, Hadjar over Lawson, 0.226, Leclerc over Hamilton, 0.138, Albon over Sainz, 0.124, Piastri over Norris, 0.098, just under a tenth advantage Oscar. Hulkenberg Bortoleto, 0.048, less than half a tenth. And then Ocon Behrman. Ocon is just about on average quicker than Behrman, but by only 18 thousandths of a second. Also, I don't have it on here because cleanliness of graph, I want to keep it, But if you're interested, the Verstappen-Lawson gap on average was only over 3 sessions, mind you. It was 880, basically 880 Verstappen ahead of Lawson. And then the average between Gasly and Doohan, which is interesting, was a 0.271. So 3 thousandths smaller than the average gap between Gasly and Colapinto as of right now. So basically the same over what Doohan and Gasly had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions, and Gasly Colapinto have had 6 together. So slightly more sessions for Jack in terms of quali head-to-heads versus Pierre. But anyway, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to keep on top of this over the course of the season. I think this is a more representative reflection of the gaps between teammates in one lap pace, in my opinion. Also, I guess we can because we are midway now, we've had 12 out of 24 weekends, so we can kind of preserve this as a visual, and then we can kind of compare the first half of the year to the second half of the year, because also then we can be like, right, which teammates improved most relative to their teammate in the second half of the season? I would expect that Antonelli-Russell gap, for example, to be smaller in the second 12 than the first 12. Something to look at. But then the race, won by Lando Norris on home turf with the Lando stand loving life ahead of Oscar Piastri. 10-second penalty. Denied him the win. Ahead of Nico FINALLY. Come on. Honestly, when he crossed the line, seeing him get it done, hearing Gabby on the radio, hearing like the team jump in, Swiss flag up in the air, bro, the ducts, the tear ducts were there. They were quivering. What a man. Honestly, I'm so chuffed for him. Like, it was such a annoying stick people would batter him with, because this guy's unbelievable. He's so good. And he always deserved a go at a top seat. I'd have loved to have seen Nico get a shot at the Red Bull second seat, for example. I think that would have been fascinating. Max as well. Max was more gassed than Nico. Max drove up next to Nico, was like, and then straight up to him afterwards as well. Gabby sprinted over to him. The vibes of this one were something special. Like, fair play, Lando. You got your win at your home Grand Prix. That's huge, man. That's huge. And, you know, we can... Lando did what he could do. Lando did what he can control. It's not Lando's fault Oscar copped a penalty. And he won the race. So you can't take that away from Lando at all. But the fact that Nico got the podium... Oh, bro. Huge. Love to see it. Nico Hulkenberg, fantastic job. Lewis Hamilton P4, a busy race for Lewis, but he ended up finishing where he started. He qualified P4 as well. Max Verstappen P5, probably should have been more. Obviously, he has that spin coming out of Stowe, which, I mean, again, you could just see, even like after that happened and he's scrapping with the Williamses, he's just got no grip because the car's not being pushed into the ground because there's no downforce on it. It's crazy. So did very well actually to finish P5 in the end. Scythed his way through. Very good. Pierre Gasly P6. Huge drive from Pierre. Absolutely monumental drive from Pierre. Unbelievable stuff. Love to see it. Lance Stroll was running P3 at one point and fell away. Tyre deg. Softs weren't great at the end. Albon P8. Was on. Williams have been caught, haven't they? Definitely been caught, and he was happy with the result by the end. Fernando P9, not too happy was Fernando. I guess seeing Stroll Stroll definitely got the more experimental strategy for sure, and it paid off. Alonso's strategy much more fell in line with the top drivers, but he got a bit of FOMO basically, did Fernando. And then George Russell P10. Damn, that was a race for George. Just basically great in qualifying, and then just kept putting slicks on at the wrong time. It's weird that George came in at the end and was like, "Oh yeah, I thought we'd gamble for slicks, but I didn't know I'd be given a hard." Like, surely if your driver sitting there driving along right, in the wet, trying to and be right, let's go for slicks. Surely you'd like want clarification of like, I want a soft, by the way, or a medium at the worst, because we need to generate temperature in these tyres to have any grip. No, we just slap a hard on. That's a sentence. And and he did a 720 for it. So great style points for George, to be fair. So not all's lost. P11, Ollie Behrman. P12, Carlos Sainz got contact with Charles Leclerc towards the end of the race. I didn't actually see that, but he spoke about it after the race, which caused him damage. He was running top 10, was Vamos, but but then fell back. And P13 Esteban Ocon, P14 Charles Leclerc, an absolute stinky LaGinty. I'm just making things up now. That was awful. I mean, Charles said it himself afterwards. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. The balance was absolutely nowhere with that car. And he was just having a day. He was having a day with Charles. And then Yuki Tsunoda P15. Spun out Behrman. Had no pace. Not much more to say. Not great. And then Antonelli, Hadjar, Bortoletto, Lawson, Colapinto all did not finish the Grand Prix. Lovely jubbly. 5 people out. And they're all rookies. Ouch. So, right, driver standings. And don't worry, we will have a little super chat and live chat once I get through this bit and a couple of other bits. Driver standings are as follows. Oscar still leads the championship only by 8 points over his teammate Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri leads over Lando Norris. Max 165. He is now miles behind. Can I count that? It's 35 plus 34, which is 69 points. Nice. Between Max Verstappen and Oscar. George Russell, 147. Leclerc, 119. Hamilton, 103. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't really, not that interesting. Albon got a few points. Bosch, 4 points on the board for him. Happy days. Hulkenberg, obviously big points for Nico. 15 on the board, which jumps him up from 22 to 37. Excellent day in the office for young Nico, who's anything but young. Who else scored? Gasly scored, decent. Alonso scored, couple points. Spat it. Not too much movement other than that, however. In the driver standings, that's how they look midway through the season. And then team standings. This is where things have moved about a bit. So, McLaren, of course, still on top, 442 points ahead of Scuderia Ferrari. Still haven't put the eye in it. I've just noticed, but who cares? You care. I know you care. You care too much. 222 for Scuderia Ferrari. 210 for Mercedes. 172 for Rebel Racing. And then Williams 59, but only now 18 points ahead of Sauber. Sauber jumped up big time from P9 to P6 in one fell swoop. So 41 points for Sauber, 36 for Racing Bulls, 36 for Aston Martin, 29 for Haas. They dropped from P7 to P9. And then finally Alpine, who got points with Pierre, but still remain rooted to the bottom with 19 points. 19 points. So there you go. That's the team standings. And then finally, before we have a little loosey-goosey chinwag, F2 and F3. We, of course, have we had F4, British F4 as well, which I don't actually know who won. But we had some Formula 2 and some Formula 3. Mary Boyer took the dub in F3. Nicholas Solov put it on pole, but went with the slicks at the start, which was the wrong tyre to be on. The rain came in, blah, blah, blah. Solov finished nowhere, and Mary Boyer won, the young Spaniard. So congratulations to him. And in F2, Jack Crawford, which there was some talk about him maybe losing the result because of when he came into the pit lane, but it was actually... Okay, long story short, he came into the pit lane just in time before VSC dropped, whatever it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he got past the line in time and he was fine. We thought he might not have been fine, but he was fine. So Jack Crawford kept the win. Well done, Jack. Ahead of Alex Dunn and Luke Browning. Luke was very racy this weekend, actually. Luke Browning was elbows out. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was a superb showing from Luke Browning this weekend. And there's 2,000 of you here. I can't remember the last time I did one of these live and had over 2,000 people. So welcome. Thank you all for joining me. Drop a like, comment, Bosh. Happy days, lovely jubbly. Right, okay. Let's go back to full screen now. And we've got some super chats. Super. Oh, you've been very generous tonight, you lot. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jamie. Nico FINALLY. Sorry, it's quite late. No, it's not that late. It's 10 to 11 on a Sunday. It's fine. Handyman. Did Hamilton back off to let Hulk have it? Look, when Lewis came out of the pit on those softs, like he went straight on, and you see in the rear view shot, Leclerc just going, just like flying off himself, and then he was, ended up passing Lewis. So yeah, Lewis kind of, I imagine, Lewis puts softs on, and you think, all right, I'm going to be able to attack straight away, and just kind of misjudges a bit. I don't think any part of Lewis wanted Nico Hülkenberg to get the podium over him getting his 13th podium in a row. Is it in a row or ever? Whatever. 13th podium at Silverstone. I think Lewis probably wanted that more, to be honest. But there you go. That's just me. Thank you, Ratchet. 10 out of 10 race. Blessing you today. Thank you very much, Ratchet. Appreciate it. And, I mean, look. I'm not going to... For me, it was an 8, but I can absolutely see why it's a 10 out of 10 for you. No question. It was popping off, and it was good fun. It was good. There was chaos. It's one of them. If you're a bit chaotically wired, if that's what you look for, then this one ticks the box. Happy days. Thank you again, Jamie. Been a while since I caught a live and super chat, but just wanted to say good day. And I've been well. I have been very well, Jamie. Thank you very much. Very, very busy, but good busy. Always good busy. Today, yeah. There's something coming out soon that I'm really excited to come out because I think it went really well. But we'll see. Thank you, Karthik, for the super chat. I rate Charles, but all-time greats almost always deliver in the wet. Every wet race, it feels like I'm watching replays of Charles getting caught out. I mean, I'm a huge endorser of Charles Leclerc, and we've seen him do incredible things in the wet, and it often comes down to how much are we attributing to the driver, how much are we attributing to the team, the car setup. So I think like this weekend, kind of a good example. So Max and Red Bull decided, okay, prior to quali, we're going to set this car up for straight line speed. We're looking at the weather report for Sunday. There might be a bit of rain, but it shouldn't be too bad. So having a low downforce configuration will work in qualifying and then won't work so much in the race. But will work enough in the race that we still got a chance. What actually happened is that he put it on pole, so it did the job on Saturday. But then come Sunday, Max, has the spin coming out of Stowe, which ultimately, yes, I know Oscar slammed on the brakes beforehand, blah, 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 which we'll get into. But Max, that didn't cause Max to spin. Max spun. I've seen a few people saying, oh, Oscar made Max spin. No, he didn't. Max spun on his own. It happens. He had noticeably less downforce than anyone around him, and you could see it when he was scrapping. So Leclerc having a lot of issues with his car. Ferrari's just kind of throwing stuff at a wall at the minute. I do also think that this was Lewis's experience around Silverstone and with these kinds of conditions. And I probably would say, Charles doesn't scream out to me as, oh, this guy's sick in the rain. He's really good in the rain. I think he's great in the rain. I don't think there's anyone who's bad in the rain either, I think it's just different levels of good or fantastic, to be honest. So I hear it, Karthik. I hear it. I think that is a feeling that I share somewhat, but I'd have to go and look back at right, how was Charles raced in all of these wet Grand Prix? Because I'm sure he's had some, as we've called them before, wet bangers, right? A banging race in the wet is a wet banger. And I know Charles had many of them. But also I know Charles had, Brazil into the... Oh, no, that was the hydraulics. See, that's an example, right? Brazil, when he crashed on the formation lap, that was hydraulics, wasn't it? Or was that dry? Regardless, I'm going off on a tangent here. I think that was wet, wasn't it? Was it wet when he went into the wall and the hydraulics broke? Anyway, regardless. Thank you, Karthik. I appreciate your super chat. Thank you, Tom. Crazy they sent out a safety car instead of using wets, in my opinion. Made the race less entertaining. The problem is, Tom, is that the wet tyre, and we've seen this, doesn't do a good enough job to... It displaces the water more than the inters because it's got thicker tread, but no one uses it because it's so slow. Now, the only way you get drivers and teams to use the wets is to mandate it. It's essentially a waste of rubber. So unless there were certain circumstances where you mandated, right, you have to start this race on the wet. So remember Canada last year, where CHINWAG, did Nico as well? I can't remember if Nico did as well, but CHINWAG had the wets on and everyone else had inters, and he was flying because it was proper wet. It was like wet tyre conditions. But then the tyres just dropped off a cliff. I'm remembering that correctly, right? I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that. Yeah, it was both Haas. Okay, excellent. But yeah, so it is frustrating to have this additional wet compound that isn't being used and a safety car is being used instead. But unfortunately, that is the position that we're in with these tyres, where they are just not race tyres. That's, what we keep hearing. They're just not race tyres. And it is a failure of Pirelli and Formula One to be in this position where you've got an additional wet compound that's not being used and you're having to use a safety car instead. They had to bring the safety car out when they did, because you're going to start aquaplaning because everyone's on inters. So it's going to be much easier to aquaplane with an inter than it is a wet tyre. And it's going to happen. And that's what leads to huge accidents where drivers can literally do absolutely nothing about it, like completely, like basically at random. So, yeah, no, I agree it's annoying, Tom. I agree. But they didn't use it for a reason. There is a reason that they're not using it. And we've seen why in the past. We've seen them try it in the past and it's just never really worked out. Thank you, Ajinkya, for the super chat. That Oscar penalty felt like it was given to close up the championship. Ooh, can't stay sad with a certain Nico Hülkenberg podium though. Interesting. I'm gonna hold on to that, Ajinkya. Your thought. We'll do a little poll once we get on to talking about Oscar's penalty. So I'm very interested to hear what you lot think. Thank you, Daniel, as well. Hi, Tom. Given Gasly scored all the points aboard the unsteady ship, the SS Alpine, should his seat really be in any jeopardy at all? It shouldn't be. And this is what I talked about in my video. Gasly is a fantastic F1 driver. And the problem is that it's really hard for him to showcase it in a car that's at the back. However, this opportunity presented itself right in the wet. The great equaliser, which is somewhat true, somewhat not. And he took to the stage and delivered a fantastic performance. So he shouldn't have to worry, Daniel. Absolutely. But the problem is he's at Alpine, which, expect the unexpected. That's all I'll say. I don't think it's a safe seat for anyone. That's all. Anyone. Who knows who the new Renault CEO is going to be coming in, like blah, blah, blah. I just feel like it's such a shame because Pierre's in his prime years right now. And it's like, I just think he's going to be one of them drivers who's never going to get a top seat. Kind of like a Nico Hülkenberg. Maybe Audi can turn into this top thing, but I think there's so many. And I think a lot of drivers, most F1 drivers never win a race. Most F1 drivers never stand on the podium. That is something that Pierre's been able to do. He's won, around Monza in the Toro Rosso. He's, stood on the podium multiple times. He has had a better F1 career than most F1 drivers have and will ever have. But I think it's going to be one of those where it's just a bit of a nearly career And maybe they could have done something special if they had a top car, but I don't think Pierre's going to get one. That's just the way it goes, unfortunately, which is sad because I've got a lot of love for Pierre. Got a lot of love for old Pierre Gasly. Thank you to... why can't I see your name? Marek? Why is it not coming up? This is weird. Just here to... what am I doing? I did call that Hulk would get a podium this year during your Miami post-race report last year. You doubted me. Tomo, never bet against the Hulk. You know what, Marek? You win. You win. You put me in my place, and respect to you. I didn't think it'd happen in a Sauber. Bro, you called this in Miami post-race report last year. Do you remember how bad that Sauber was last year? Like, forgive me for not seeing the vision that you clearly had, Marek, and fair play to you. But forgive me, because that car was a Green Goblin. And the Green Goblin's quite fast. Green recycling bin. That's what it was. It was a green recycling bin last year. So forgive me, okay? Thank you, Dr. Guts. Ulkebeck! Love it, love it. Thank you, Louise. Forget McLaren, Nico on the podium, and Gabby talking to him were feel-good moments of the year. Honest, I really, really like Gabriel Bortoleto. I've said this before. I think he is a great character. I think, like, even when there was a presser I saw and he was asked a question about, I can't remember the exact question, but it was something to do with kind of Brazilian media fan expectations almost. And I think he was getting a bit of criticism in kind of the local media, and he was just kind of explaining how, it is hard to showcase when you're in a team towards the back, and, trying to educate the fan base about, Brazilian fan base is used to, success. They want to see, Felipe Massa, winning races, almost winning a title, obviously Senna. And I just thought it was really, like, mature, very switched on, but also, like, funny. And his favourite brain rot meme is also my favourite brain rot meme, which is a certain tung 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 sir. So he is a man of culture. Thank you, John. Greetings from Cam CC Max Glazer. Hulk smash. Hulk indeed smashed. He did not pass, he smashed. Well done, Hulk. Smashed it. Pascal as well, as a Sauber fan. What enjoyable season so far. Wow. Tell you what, Pascal, that is a good show of character. To be a Sauber fan, because, damn, you guys have been dragged for years. Sauber, first podium for Sauber in 13 years. 13 years. Craziness. Unbelievable. Love to see it. Not only for Nico, but for Sauber as well. What a vibe. What a vibe. Love to see it. Thank you, Cindy, as well, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Right. Excellent. Let's carry on with the old split screen. Bangers and clangers. I've not had a good day. I've got 0 out of 5. And sometimes I think, why do I bother? Because this was awful. George Russell race win? No. Ollie Behrman bang and drive? No. Clang and drive Oscar Piastri? No. Banger team Haas F1 team? No. Clanger team Alpine F1 team? No. Should I explain? No. And do I have to show you yours? You're just going to be really smug. All right, there you go. All right. If you didn't see it, then I did show it. But if you weren't quick enough to see it, then that's kind of not on me. And if you're audio only, you don't need to know how you did. No, well done. All right, well done. 38% of you, Lando race win. Well done. Banger drive, Lewis. I've given you half a point for that because I think actually Lewis, all in all, did a pretty good job. Good in qualifying, out qualified Charles just was up there in the fight. I'm not going to give him a full point, but you've done that. Clanger drive, Colapinto, I'll give you a point for that. We're not quite sure. I haven't been able to find a completely validated source of why his race ended. Was it him or was it the car? Was it both? But I'll give you a point for that. And then Banger Team McLaren, I mean, it's a 1-2, so fair enough. Can't really argue with that. So you scored 3.5 points. I scored 0. Beaten by Hulk is 0.5 point. Yeah, but come on, DH. Like the Sauber was decent, and it's raining, and Ferrari are a bit crazy. Sauber seem to be quite calm now. You know, that all plays into it. So yeah. Anyway, you win. Hope you're happy. But what about actual bangers and clangers? Well, let's start with banger drive. Now. Obviously, you lot have gone. In fact, we'll jump ahead here. 2,389 of you have voted. And almost entirely gone for Nico Hülkenberg as your banger driver. 95% of the vote. 1% for Gasly, 1% for Lando Norris. Goes without saying, right? But back to mine. I want to shout someone else out because obviously Nico has captivated the moment. I was on the brink watching. The emotions were high, right? Absolutely chuffed for him. But there is someone else who deserves a big shout out. And I do think I'm going to give it. And I think objectively, you take the emotion, the vibes out. Pierre Gasly was the banger driver this weekend. That Alpine is pink trash. The Sauber has got good. Nico had a bad qualifying. Recovered incredibly in the race. P3, unbelievable, right? Blah, blah, blah. But Gasly, in that absolute heap, got it to Q3, P6, was scrapping Max at the end, didn't make a single mistake all race. He had a complete weekend, did Pierre Gasly. With everything that's going on at Alpine, this brother deserves a shout out, all right? So, yes, Hülkenberg wins the heart, okay, and mine as well. But fair play, Pierre Gasly. I'm giving it to you. Okay. You've obviously gone Hülkenberg, 95%, like I said, and fair enough. Calm down, chat. The Lomo accusations are not checking out. Okay. This is a Womo kind of stream. All right, we're here for it. Clanger drive. There's a few candidates here. Unfortunately. And I do hope that it checks out that it was a difficult qualifying that could have been better and there was a car power issue. But I've got to give it Yuki. Again, Charles definitely up there. Franco's up there. Gabby, shunting in the race. Yuki took out Ollie. Had no pace in the race. Finished last. Finished 15th in a race where 5 drivers didn't finish the race. It's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating seeing him struggle like he is. Because actually, again, like after Saturday, he sounded quite positive. Got to Q2, felt like maybe Q3 was on. It's just tough to watch, man. And it wasn't his fault that he was on the inside of Ocon when obviously Lawson, got contacts. Like, that's 3 wide into a corner, it happens. But yeah, taking out Ollie, spinning him out, just having 0 pace in the race. I just, you see Max able to make his way through, was P11 at one point after his spin. made his way through to P5, and just Yuki was just not able to make any progress whatsoever. He does have the old floor, which I think accounts for some of it, but I don't think that's a significant contributing factor, to be honest, to the gap. I think if Yuki had the new floor, it would be a little bit better, but it's rubbish. But I love the kid, but sorry, it is what it is. As for your clanger driver, you've gone with Charles Leclerc. 36% of the votes, 19% for Yuki Tsunoda, 14% for Franco Colapinto, and 7% for Oscar Piastri. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Charles is also a fair shout. He did have that contact with Sainz. If I was able to, I've not seen the contact, so I've just heard Sainz talk about it. If Charles essentially stacks it and takes out Sainz and causes him damage, then maybe I would have given it to Charles, because Charles did have an absolute howler, but which isn't, I don't think it's very often. But yeah, I mean, it checks out. Okay, I'm not going to hate on you for that, for going for Charles, Yuki, Franco, and then Oscar. Yeah, I mean, it is a mistake that's cost him. It's a 14-point swing with his teammate, which, when you think about it like that, in the context of a championship with your only real rival for that championship now, a 14-point swing for just doing something just a bit silly. You might, again, we'll get into whether the penalty was fair, blah, blah, blah. But that is an L. That is an L. Banger team, I've gone with Sauber. I think that as much as McLaren got a 1-2, I think that Sauber got their first podium in 13 years and delivered Nico Hülkenberg a car that he could put on the podium and have, at one stage Lewis breathing down his neck, and then open up that gap and deliver the race that he did. Sauber kept it tidy with the strategy, didn't do anything crazy. Bit of a nervy pit stop towards the end that was a bit delayed, but I want to say that that Sauber deserved banger team. And yes, Pranav Hajar did take both himself out and Kimi, but also he couldn't see anything, which he literally couldn't see anything. So I can't dig him out too much for that. It was very unlucky, the Hajar Antonelli incident, in my opinion. So Sauber, you get banger team for me. Banger team for you is McLaren, 55% of the vote, 29% for Sauber, 15% for Aston Martin McCutcheon. Double points, although Fernando thought it should have been more, which maybe it could have been more for Mr. Alonso, but 15% of the vote is fair. And then finally, clanger team for me, it's Mercedes. They just made the wrong decision at pretty much every point in the race. And I understand what George was saying post-race. He was like, look, was it a stupid decision to go on the slicks early? It wouldn't have been stupid if it wasn't for, first we had the Lawson crash, then we had the Bortoletto crash. And all this did was delay the race, which meant the rain came quicker relative to racing laps. So without those two incidents, and if it had been clean, maybe they look like heroes. Instead, they look like a bunch of, say the line, but so yeah, Mercedes, very bad day. I was expecting big things. I was expecting a George Russell race win, and in the end, I mean, it wasn't Kimi's fault that Hajar went into the back of him. It wasn't really Isaac's fault either, because he couldn't see anything. And again, yeah, just bad decisions with George. I'm going Mercedes for me. And you've gone Racing Bulls, which is fair. Liam out in Q1, Isaac out in Q2. Isaac contacts Liam was unfortunate. I don't think the team did too much wrong. That's what I would say. I think they were both unlucky in their incidents. They were both unlucky in the way that their respective races ended, rather than making bad calls, So, clanger in terms of end result, sure, but I think Mercedes were more culpable in their clanging this weekend. 30% of you went Mercedes, 11% of you went Haas, and 11% went Red Bull. So, just to quickly reflect, those are my totals for the year. So Antonelli and Norris both got 2 bangers. Yuki now has 2 clangers. 3 bangers for Sauber for me. Damn. And 3 for Mercedes. Which is pretty interesting. And then yours, you've got 3 bangers for Mercedes, 3 for McLaren. You've only got 1 for Sauber. Who knew I was on Sauber payroll? Clearly. Only possible explanation. Only possible explanation from me. Right, okay. Should we go team by team? There's a few other things we haven't even spoken about the Oscar Piastri thing yet, and we're almost 50 odd minutes in, which is big waffle from me. Let's start with the team in green. It's Sauber. So, right, Bonotto, technical mind, doing technical things. Wheatley, big brain, been about for years. Team principal job just seems perfectly set for him, kind of in the same way that it does for James Vowles. James Vowles was obviously strategist at Mercedes for years and has walked into this team principal position and taken to it like a duck to water. And look, I think, I've said this before, I think Valtteri and Joe must be looking at this being like, why didn't we have that car? But I don't think it can be underestimated, the value of bringing in good people who have knowledge from top teams and can make an immediate impression. They're not going to change everything in a day or a week or a month, but that positive, experienced know-how knocking about the factory can only be a good thing. So, look, is this going to make the Audi project this amazing thing? It's going to be depending on the power unit more than anything. We know that Sauber are planning to open up a UK satellite base, which might make them a bit more competitive in the engineer market. I think there's the potential for a real sleeping giant here, but potential is a dangerous word. I'm very promising is what it looks like right now. Can the team fully exploit their Hinwil base, because they have a fantastic facility? They've got 2 fantastic drivers, right? Nico, there's nothing more to be said about. He's a boss. He's an absolute geezer, right? Hulkenberg, fantastic. Bortoletto, he shunted today. He was on slicks too early. It happens. Like, Leclerc went off. Russell went off. They could have easily crashed. Like, loads of drivers with way more experience went off. You know, Bortoletto shunted. It is what it is. But he's one for the future. I firmly believe that. Absolutely believe Gabriel Bortoletto will be around in F1 for a very long time. And yeah, I think he's got that perfect blend between the two of them. They've got a great relationship seemingly together. And it's mad how quickly things can change, you know? Since, Seidel left and everything seemed a bit, oh God, what's going on here then? Audi started selling off shares. They were originally going to buy 100% of the team. They were originally going to buy a controlling stake in the team, not 100%. Then they were going to buy 100%. Then they sold some of those shares off to generate more revenue because Audi or the VW group are struggling in terms of the domestic car market. So it's not a great look to have this really expensive F1 team. Although a lot of F1 teams are running at a profit now. So we can argue that way. But yeah, look, it's Sauber fans out there. Reason for hope for the first time in a very long time. And Kevin Magnussen, a lucky charm indeed. Yeah, he was in the Sauber garage, wasn't he? Giving it one of them. Just a calm clap from Kevin to the man he once told to suck his balls, which is a throwback. It was Kevin told Nico to yeah, that was it. I couldn't remember if it was the other way around. Anyway, details. Yeah, look, I mean, it's good. I can't remember where I predicted Sauber to finish this year. I definitely predicted them to finish above bottom. But I mean, look, it's great momentum. Williams need to be concerned for P5. And again, for these smaller teams, and I know Audi's not small, but like they're going to appreciate that prize money. If we're saying it's like 10, 12 million per position, that's not an insignificant sum of money to any of these teams that aren't the top four, basically. So, Nico wouldn't ever say that, Tomo. Perhaps not, Tyler. Perhaps not. I don't know. I think he would. I could see Nico saying that himself, but it was Kevin, wasn't it? So yeah, well done, Sauber. Happy days. Now just get a glorious Audi livery on that car next year, and we'll all be happy. Alpine. Okay, so I want to chat about Colapinto first and foremost. Obviously, qualifying was really frustrating because he has demonstrated decent one-off pace relative to Gasly. So if I look at my spreadsheet, he has out-qualified Pierre twice in my spreadsheet. 18 thousandths of a second, then 0.433 of a second. So, you know, he's got it in his locker, has Colapinto. We know he's got it in his locker from his time at Williams. And then, so basically what's happened is Colapinto was one of the cars who, on the formation lap, decided to come in. Now, we saw Russell and Leclerc. We didn't really see anyone else, but, you know, Colapinto came in as well to put on slicks. And take the wheels off, and there were hard slicks as well, I think, which was a choice. Then Colapinto goes to drive away and no gears, trying to get into gear, won't drive off. Now, I've heard conflicting reports here. I don't know what the truth is. I've heard that it's the same kind of issue that's happened to him earlier in the year. Do you remember at the end of the pit lane? Was it Imola, I want to say? I can't remember. At the end of the pit lane where he stops and he couldn't get going in qualifying. I've heard that it's the same as that, but I can't verify that. I'm pretty sure Ted Kravitz said that. Or was it Spain? No, is it Spain? I can't remember. Whatever, doesn't matter. It was Spain. Okay, thank you. It was Spain that happened. I think Ted Kravitz said that, but again, don't quote me on that. I think that's what he said. But I've also heard, I've not seen the official Alpine statement, but I've seen a lot of people commenting saying Alpine have said it was a gearbox issue. Ultimately, I don't know if it was Franco or the car or both. It's not a good look, especially if it is Franco's, you know, cocked up, and surely it must be something car related. It must have been something that broke in the car. I want to give him benefit of doubt. I do. I think you should give benefit of doubt unless there is absolute reason to believe otherwise. Now, I would also say, yeah, it's probably in Alpine's best interest to. Would Briatore fess up to it and be like, yeah, it was actually the car? Or would he just throw his driver under the bus? I don't think he'd throw his driver under the bus. But obviously the pressure around Franco and his seat is pretty heavy at the minute. And it hasn't gone to plan. You got to say that. And I've said this before, you know, I think it was to drop Jack after however many races he'd had was silly. Was foolish. You can't get a good judge on Jack doing. But if you're going to do it, and you're going to put Colapinto in, who we've seen do well in a Williams, you have to commit to that decision. Now, all of the talk about Bottas right now, and would Bottas be an upgrade on that seat? Of course he would. Valtteri is a top driver, won 10 races for a reason, outqualified Lewis Hamilton 30% of the time for a reason. It's just a bit crazy that we've got this far into the season and all of a sudden now this seems to be the thing that may happen ahead of Spa next race. You give the first half of the season to two rookies who have had how many massive shunts? Like doing in Suzuka, doing in Australia. That was kind of tough, but it happened. Colapinto in Imola. It just, and now it's like, yeah, just chuck Bottas in. Valtteri, you're up, son. Get him. Never driven an Alpine Renault engine before. I mean, he would be an upgrade, of course he would. But, geez, man, like, come on. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? It's just weird. Like, if Briatore was like, right, we need to... Well, look, what Briatore wanted was to have his cake and eat it. He wanted the Colapinto money, but also Colapinto to be sick and score lots of points. And also he's young and he's charismatic, brandable, great. That's what he wanted. But bro, Colapinto was like plucked out of F2, you know, fairly, he wasn't really on many people's radars. Like, obviously Williams had belief in him and faith in him, and he did better than Sargent. Chuck him in for a couple of races. Like, again, De Vries did well in the Williams, and we saw how that ended up. And then you chuck Colapinto in after giving Jack doing like 6 races in a completely different team, different engine, different... none of that kind of... Well, obviously, plenty of it would have helped, but like none of the TPC stuff or the FP1 sessions he did with Williams, none of that carries over. Like, you're kind of setting him up for failure. It's kind of what you're doing. It is kind. If you're not even gonna, you're not gonna commit. You know, Doohan, he'd had years of TPC. He'd had like FP1 sessions. They gave him the Abu Dhabi race at the end of last year. Gave him pre-season this year. Like, what you have to say about Jack is that Alpine gave him a fair shot to start with. 6 races is not enough, obviously. But they gave him a fair crack of the whip in terms of preparation. Colapinto's not had any of that. He's not had any of that preparation. Like, we're seeing how much Sainz is, for example, you know, his struggles getting used to a Mercedes engine. He'd never used one in his career before. Well, Colapinto only knew the Mercedes engine from Williams. That's a very small amount of time. And now he's in an Alpine. Like, what is the point if you're not going to give them... Because to expect Colapinto to jump into this completely foreign car to him and just immediately be up to pace and get points and be there with Pierre, it's not how it works, Flav. It's not how it worked. It might have been how it worked back in the day when I don't think the standard of drivers was as good as it is now. Like, honestly, you had a lot more pay drivers. People, you know, all right, fine, dig out Lance, because Lance is a representation of that old school pay driver angle. But Lance can score points. He can score podiums. Like, he's not a mug. He's actually got some skill. Of course he has. But like, you in amongst this level of every single driver's gone through, you know, millions in terms of costs to get them to where they are, and is starting when they're 4, you know, it's a different era now where there's so much more highly regulated. You've got the simulators, you've got all of this access, like, you got all this telemetry, you've got this data. Like, it's not the era that you're from, Briatore. And I think, I don't know, his approach is just, it's just creating more problems. And I'm not surprised. And it's a shame, because I think, again, Franco, this is hurting his, you know, long-term ambitions in the sport. Part of me's like, yeah, you should have stayed at Williams. But Franco can't, you're getting offered a seat at Alpine and a likely chance. James Vowles said, you know, we're letting him go because we felt like this is his best chance for a seat in 2025. And he has a seat in 2025. So you can't turn that opportunity down. But at the same time, like, if you're not going to manage these young drivers appropriately, then what you're doing, just put Bottas in the first place. I mean, it'd be harsh. It'd be so harsh, but like just avoided doing his contract before he even started this season. Like, if Briatore's way is going to be like, right, boom, we're going to be super. Get Bottas in after the 6 races. Like, it just feels like too little too late. And it's just silly because it's really, I think Jack Doohan could have become a solid F1 driver at a minimum. I think Franco Colapinto could have become a solid F1 driver at a minimum. And maybe that's not enough. Maybe we should be looking for more. But I think there's many drivers I would call solid. I think solid relative to the current grid. So like still very, very good. But it's like now I'm just like, geez, I don't know what Jack's going to do next. Jack's probably never getting back in an F1 car. If Franco gets dropped for Valtteri, I don't see how this kind of dress rehearsal has not gone well. You're setting these drivers up for failure. And yet, again, I think Bottas would do a better job. And I think Bottas is the pragmatic choice, but you shouldn't have gone through definitely not 2 juniors to get to this, all right, we should put Valtteri in the car. It's just, yeah. I feel for Jack and I feel for Franco, ultimately. And I just think it's just foolishness. And it kind of gets on my nerves a bit, to be honest. But you know, I've never been one to endorse the Briatore return, and certainly what he's been doing at the team is not changing my opinion anytime soon. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Bosh. Jeremy, thank you for the super chat. FI re-enabled DRS. The second Lewis finally got within a second of the Hulk. Clear British bias. Apologise for the crimes of you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And they only did it because Hulkenberg's German. And, you know that rivalry there, man. The Brits and the Germans, you know. It's like Frank Lampard hitting the crossbar and it going over the line but not going over the line all over again. That was against Germany, wasn't it? I can't remember. Anyway, right, okay, let's... also, thank you, Bottas fan 123. I wonder where your allegiance lies. I think if I was Flavia, I would sign Valtteri. No, really? Bottas fan 123. If I was Flavia, I would sign Valtteri. Nah, never. I am shocked. Look at me. This is me being absolutely never. I would sign Valtteri because even if he is behind Gasly, he will keep it out of the wall. And tell me if I am biased. No, never. Never Bottas fan 123. Never. I would never accuse you of such a thing. Oh, funny. Right, okay. Let's talk about McLaren. Let's talk about Piastri. Because we're an hour and 10 minutes in. And I've not talked about the main thing in the thumbnail, which is absolute clickbait from me, isn't it? Right, so Oscar got a 10-second time penalty for... What was the technical... I've got the document up here. In fact, I can do a little screen share for this. Oscar Piastri, McLaren Formula 1 team. A fact. I like this bit. Fact. Erratic braking on the straight before T15 when the safety car lights were extinguished. Infringement, breach of Article 55.15, blah, blah, blah. 10-second time penalty, 2 penalty points. Stewards reviewed the data when the clerk of the course had declared the safety car was coming in, which was a late call, which probably is a factor that affected what happened, which allowed what happened to happen more likely. I can't English, but there you go. Car 81 suddenly braked hard, 59.2 psi, pounds per square inch of brake pressure. Reduced the speed in the middle of the straight between 14 and 15 from 218 kilometers an hour to 52 kilometers an hour, resulting in car 1 having to take evasive action to avoid a collision. Blah blah blah. That's not really endanger drivers. Just erratic. Erratic is the key word here. What car 81 did was a clear breach of the article. In accordance with the penalty guidelines, we imposed a 10-second time penalty to car 81. Naughty, Mr. Oscar Piastri. Look, I think you watch it. For me, watching it live, I was like, bro, that looks bad. Like, I think you're going to get a penalty for that. Now, does anyone remember, I want to say Mugello 2020. Was it Mugello 2020? When there was the... Yeah, it was, because that's one of Albon's very few podiums. Because everyone crashed, basically. Oh, God. That was a year, wasn't it? Mugello 2020. Safety car restart. Now, this wasn't raining or whatever, right? But when you are leading the safety car queue, one thing you definitely can't do is plant your foot, give the impression to the car behind, which I think Max understandably got that impression that this is it, we're going, and then haul anchor. Now, people talk about George, Canada, right? George wasn't penalised. He used half the brake pressure Oscar did and slowed down from, I think it was like 140 kilometers an hour rather than 210, down to like 60. So it was less aggressive. It was also at a different time. The Oscar one was clearly factually more egregious. You also had the wet weather, which meant spray, which meant less visibility, which meant if anyone's going to drive into the back of someone, you're way more likely to do it in the wet than you are in the dry, because your braking performance isn't as good in the wet, and your reaction times, you know, there's more possibility of locking up, etc., etc. Like, I think, and I felt this about Ollie when he did his, just, what were you doing? It was a red flag, bro, and you're like fully sending it. It was just a real misjudgment. It was just a bad decision. Like Oscar said, I was doing it other times. Yeah, but like, bro, that was too much. That was clearly too much watching it, as far as I'm concerned. There's clearly shouldn't be able to do that when you're setting up. And British bias, blah, blah. I obviously, it's Max behind him. Max ain't British, funnily enough. Like, it was just silly. Now, whether 10 seconds or not is fair, I mean, if that's the penalty, that's the penalty. I think it's one of them that you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. You know, if you're going to start saying, well, 59.2 psi is too much brake pressure, but 45.7% is the cutoff, and that's not going to happen. But for me, like passing the eye test again, to plant your foot and then plant your foot on the brake in the way Oscar did, for me that was just clearly, yeah, like, what are you doing, mate? It's just. And Rab's here repping slam dunk pen. It was silly when Ollie, you know, did what he did under the red flag, and it was silly for Oscar to do what he did. It's a big penalty in the context of the championship. Again, a 14-point swing if he wins that race relative to Lando. But for me, it's kind of a fair cop, and I think when Oscar watches it back after things have calmed down a bit, he'll probably agree. And I think there's a reason. I mean, maybe part of the reason is because obviously it was only against his teammate, right, that the outcome changed anything. But I think McLaren probably were like, yeah, it's, you can say it's borderline. Perhaps I would say borderline. But again, just the eye test, watching live, Oscar had to brake, but he didn't have to slam on the brakes with 60. That he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do it to that extent and slow down at that rate. That is the imperative point here. It's the rate of deceleration. If Oscar had planted it and then like lifted off and slowed down a bit, look, that's still not. But that I think you get away with that. To plant your foot and then put, maximum brake pressure. Is it about 120? I want to say. And then in the wet as well. Mr. Hoppy, the best comment I've ever seen on the situation is that Piastri galaxy brained himself out of a win. He's just on he's just in another dimension, Oscar. He's doing his own thing. He's playing 4D chess. But sometimes, it's like when you sat in bed like on your phone and you just drop your phone on your face like that. Ow. He just did one of them. Is a whoopsie. And it's a 14-point swing that's gone against him for it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair cop, to be honest. That's how I feel about it, in my opinion. But there you go. Thank you again, Mr. Hoppy, for another super chat. I understand the initial feeling of Piastri's penalty being a tad harsh at the beginning, but once the brake telemetry was shown, it was slam dunk. As an aside, I've never seen Piastri this emotional. Yeah, he was fuming. And look, I think that I can understand, right, that in the cockpit, in the moment, doing what he's done, where he's at the front of that queue, that he's been like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, what are you talking about? I've done this before. But like, when you look at Max's onboards, when you see the spray of the cars behind, it's like when, remember Spa when that race got cancelled? And like whoever was lead, I think it was Max at the front, wasn't he? And it was like, yeah, the spray's kind of, it's not that bad. And then you just see all the other cars being like, I can't see it. I'm drowning. Because it's just so bad, the spray. It's like, I think when Oscar sees the onboards, I think he will be like, okay, fine. That was a boo-boo by me. That's how, because I think he's very mature. He's very someone to take accountability. I think he's very much that way inclined. So he'll learn from it, and it's a tight championship fight. But you have to take, credit off of Oscar for this. He's made an error in judgment, and it's cost him. Again, a 14-point swing to his teammate, which is a big punishment when the championship's going to be this close. We're 8 points in it with 12 races to go, but 12 races done as well. But yeah, no, he was fuming after, wasn't he, Oscar? He was very... He's an eye roller, isn't he? He's an eye roller, is Oscar, when he's fuming. And I want to see a bit of splash from him. Right, if things start to get a bit tasty, I think Oscar's going to give us the passive aggressive energy. Lando would be a bit more out there and open with his words and feelings. I think that'd kind of be interesting if it happens, but we'll see. But outside of that, look, strong job by both in qualifying. Both maybe could have got pole. Both kind of had slightly sloppy laps. And their final push, Oscar was flying on that first stint. He opened up a big gap before the safety car to Max and Lando behind him. And then obviously when Lando's ahead, Lando's kind of holding that gap steady. Well, actually, Lando was closing the gap to Oscar before the pits. So there were times in the race where Oscar was quicker. There were times in the race that Lando was quicker. I'd say overall, the course of the weekend, I think Oscar definitely had the edge, but just ever so slightly. And again, he made an error of judgment, and Lando got the win. And that's what happens. It's fine margins out here. And Lando was there to capitalise. And that's all he can do, really. So, yeah, fair play to Lando. Like, huge getting your home win as well. That's a massive result for him. You know, he's got Monaco done. He's got this home win done as well. Like, this is what we need. Because, again, this championship was at risk of kind of falling off a bit. You know, Lando getting too much in his own head, and his performance is starting to wane. But he's been able to get some clutch results with a bit of luck on his side at times, sure, but you need a bit of luck to win a title. And it bodes well for the rest of the season. Bodes very well. Because we know Oscar will be back, but Lando, he's got some decent momentum behind him now. So I'm excited to see how this pans out for the rest of the season. I think, yeah, McLaren can afford to let him race ultimately because they have such a big advantage. I think if the Constructors' Championship was a bit tighter, I do wonder if that would change how McLaren try and manage these two. But yeah, if it's quite cheeky from Oscar to be like, oh well, if you don't think the penalty's fair, then let Lando give me the position and we can fight. It was like, bro, that's not happening. Bro, you're asking way too much. Like, fair play. Don't ask, don't get in life. But that you're not getting that one, Oscar. They're not giving that to you, mate. No chance. Okay. Scuderia Ferrari. Let's talk a little bit about the... yeah, it's quite a long stream. That's what we're here for, DH. Ferrari. Right. Oh, God. I thought this was going to be pretty good this weekend. And I think, you know, Lewis... I said this in the pre-race, you know. Around Silverstone, you can rely on Lewis to deliver a peak Lewis performance. And his speed in qualifying was top. He was right up there. Had a good shot at pole. In the race as well, like his pace at times. It's really hard when there's been such a crazy race, you know, how much of it is the car, is this team, is the strategy, is the decision making going on. You know, Lewis was on it. It was Charles who took the gamble on the slicks at the start. It's a disappointing weekend from Charles Leclerc. I agree, Panzer, with that assessment. Yeah, disappointing from Charles. I think Lewis, you know, he had his fair share of moments, but it's one of them kind of crazy races. McLaren just looked really comfortable. Like, didn't expect them to be so comfortable. I wonder if it hadn't rained. I don't think McLaren would have had the same advantage. There's just, like, in the rain, they are rapid. In the heat, they are rapid. When it's a bit cooler, when it's not raining, the other teams have got a chance. But over 24 Grand Prix, you know, having that baked-in advantage that isn't going to be going anywhere until the end of this regulation cycle is going to put papaya on top, as Lando would say. So, yeah, look, I think that Lewis can take a lot from this weekend. This is the happiest I've seen him in a Ferrari suit. And conversely, it's the least happy we've seen Charles. But also, I think part of it is seeing Lewis do relatively very well makes it even more annoying for Charles. Because that's not like these two, you know, happy families, Roscoe, Leo, you know, dogs playing about, you know what I mean? These two want to beat each other more than anyone else, right? You got to beat your teammate. So anytime Lewis does well and Charles doesn't, Charles going to be fuming. Vice versa, you know? It's the game. And yeah, there's a lot of obviously pressure, a lot of talk around Fred. I just think they need to trust the process because you've got two incredible drivers. I think Lewis has been closer to Charles than I expected he would be. I say that in the quali head-to-heads. What it is 0.13857, blah, blah, blah. So basically, less than a tenth and a half advantage Leclerc. I thought it would be bigger than that in terms of 1 lap delta. Lewis is still getting to grips with this car. I'm certainly, look, I still don't think Lewis is going to be, if any Ferrari driver wins a world title in 26 or 27, I think it's Charles Leclerc. But I'm not as convinced of that assertion than I was this time, 6 months ago. I think Lewis has overperformed relative to my expectation, relative to Charles. It's been a difficult car for both of them. And that plays into it as well. If it was a car that they were both happier with, would we be seeing, Charles getting away, pulling away from Lewis a bit more? I think probably, but, I still think it would be within that 2/10 range. So, yeah, one to forget for Charles. And the streak comes to an end for Lewis in terms of podiums at Silverstone, but he put in a good performance. He did well. Haas. Oh God. Right. Okay. So yeah, obviously I was gassed for Haas. I went there on Tuesday. I had a little look around the factory. Very cool. See the upgrades. Bought upgrades this weekend. Obviously Ollie getting P8 in qualifying. Big, huge. But of course his silliness under that red flag, getting the 10-place grid drop, hurting big time. Esteban, not a great qualifying. Race was difficult, getting caught up in shenanigans, you know what I mean? Like, again, it is just seeing this team do what they do with such a lack of, 350 members of staff. The next smallest is, I think, Williams with like over 1,000. So it is super impressive that they're able to do what they do. I hope that the Toyota Gazoo Racing partnership increases, seeing the factory, their Haas's TPC stuff, testing previous cars, is basically bankrolled by Toyota, and it's huge. Like that's a significant part of the factory is dedicated to the TPC stuff, which is kind of cool because they never had that before, and Toyota have really invested a lot of money into it, and I think they're doing some testing in Japan at some point with, I want to say, it's one of the Super Formula drivers. I can't remember his name. It's not, I think Ryo Hirakawa's doing one. I think Miata might be there, but I don't actually think he is actually because he's doing F2. There's a Super Formula driver who's doing some TPC. But either way, that's cool. But the team will fall behind. It kind of ironic, really. Haas CNC, that's Gene Haas's stuff. They don't have any of their own lathes. They don't manufacture components at that factory. Whereas when I went to Ferrari a couple of years ago, they had Haas CNC machines. Wait, was that a Ferrari? I think it was. I went to one of the team's factories. Maybe it was Mercedes. That's a lie. Mercedes have Haas CNC machines to create components. Haas don't have Haas CNC machines. They buy everything in. That's just the way they do it. It's really, really interesting. Really interesting. Just seeing how, this team is able to be competitive. What decisions they have to make as a business. Shoes Saboy. That's the one, Will.i.am. Yes, it's Saboy. Mercedes is a Haas customer team. Yeah, technically. I think Ferrari use Haas CNC machines as well. I think, but I'm sure Mercedes do. I'm sure I remember looking around and being like, "There's a Haas logo over there," but like the Haas CNC logo is slightly different. Anyway, I digress. Ollie, I said it before, rapid but rookie. This is not his first rodeo with a red flag infringement. So Ollie, listen, you can't make the same mistake twice. That's the problem. And I'm very confident that Io Komatsu runs a tight ship at Haas. He is, in terms of oversight and making sure everyone's doing their thing and holding people accountable, the impression I got is that that's something that Io does much more than Gunter used to do. And I think that's, it's a balance, of course, right? But I think that's needed. So I think that they left points on the table this weekend. It's a shame when you got your drivers crashing into each other. I thought that was... I thought the commentary was a bit harsh on Esteban when they were like, "Oh, Esteban just closed the door on Ollie." Like, yeah, well, Ollie sent it in though. Like, it was the kind of crash that in the wet that's always going to happen. So I think it was kind of racing incident. Ollie and Esteban having their little double pirouette, but not ideal. You know, again, not ideal. Especially a team that again has so little funding relative to the big teams. It's not what you want to see. You don't want to be breaking bits off of cars. So, yeah, look, I mean, they've dropped to P9 in the Constructors, which is not good. But they bought this upgrade for a reason, because every position counts and matters, especially to these smaller teams. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the approach is now that let's hope this upgrade delivers some points. And they might even bring more, maybe, if they decide that it's worth it. Because 12 million a position, 24 million for 2, 36 million for 3, 48 million for 4, 60 million for 5 positions. If we're talking rough prize money difference, that's massive. Massive. And yeah, Ocon will always be blamed, that's true. 5-second penalty for Ocon is a meme for a reason. Racing Bulls. Damn, yeah. Look, Liam, super unlucky. It's one of them 3 wide moments where, you know, the driver on the outside doesn't know about the driver on the inside and vice versa. And Ocon's stuck in the middle. It's a miracle that he was able to carry on, by the way. Damn. It's mad how you have the tiniest glance. Like, remember Verstappen Norris in Austria last year. The tiniest little kiss. Both, you know, tyre blowouts, destroying the floor, blah, blah, blah. This, Ocon, absolute Clarts Lawson, I mean, they come together, whatever. And he's fine. And he races the whole Grand Prix. No problem. It's actually crazy. So, yeah. Unlucky for Liam. Goes out in Q1. Not great. Delta was, what was he off of? Isaac in qualifying. I worry for Liam. 0.263 of a second. I think Liam's great, but I don't think we're seeing the best of Liam. But he needs to step it up pronto. 0.263 of a second off Hadjar in qualifying. Out in Q1. Hadjar out in Q2. Hadjar kind of running his own race, you know, was doing fine. He was just fine. And then obviously got couldn't see. I mean, that is if you haven't watched Hadjar's onboard, like, you don't see Antonelli's red flashing light until right, like, literally when he's there. When he's inside his diffuser. Like, and that's such a high, you know, speed part of the circuit as well. So, scary accident. And not much Hadjar could have done about it, to be honest. Yeah, hard to get a read on this battle for... This battle, even now, I've got to say for P5, now that Williams seem to have kind of plateaued a bit, this battle for P5, I think it's going to go the distance. It's very interesting. Very interesting to see who comes out on top. And it's nice that they're fighting for something, you know? That they're not just kind of all... Even Alpine, especially if they put Bottas in the car, even Alpine could, you know, get a bit of momentum together, maybe another upgrade on the car. They could challenge. They're not a million miles off, you know. But yeah, weekends to forget for the Bulls that race. Yeah, Williams, obviously Alex, P8, they were running together, weren't they, for a lot of the race, Carlos and Alex, which was a problem when they wanted to pit stop, because obviously you got a double stack that way, and then you lose a load of time, so they're having to offset. Like Alex he did that extra lap on the old Inters, where he was just getting absolutely swallowed up by Verstappen and Norris and the leaders. So that was annoying as an Albon fan to watch. But P8 in the end, he was pretty satisfied with the result. Carlos copped damage. Again, haven't seen. Yeah, he said Charles hit him basically and had damage, and then that saw him drop down out of the points entirely. So hard one to judge. Carlos was running, they were running together the whole race, so they should have both already finished in the points. So I'm not going to be too critical of Sainz again. I haven't seen that incident. So yeah, that they seem to have plateaued. They're not bringing any more upgrades that we know of anyway, unless James Vowles has been lying this whole time and they're going to bring an upgrade and they're going to be the quickest car in Spa, maybe. Yeah. They just need to hope that that early points advantage that Alex built they can hold on to it. And I think, look, most weekends it will be the 2 McLarens, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Mercedes, and Max. 7 cars holding out that top 10. Now, it rained and things got a bit chaotic, so that opened up the opportunity for Hülkenberg to get P3 and, Gasly to get P6 and Stroll to get P7. But that won't happen most weekends. So Williams' advantage is still very, very big and important. But, yeah, they need to hope. They need to hope and pray. But we'll see. Mercedes, stinker. Absolute stinker. Absolute howler. I feel for George, man. I do like this whole situation. Mercedes do hold all the cards ultimately. I don't think that Max is going to Mercedes in 2026. I think this is conversations that are happening for a potential future to know what Max is doing going forward. I think George is in a team that, Toto only gave Valtteri 1-year extensions. Toto only ever agreed a deal with Lewis right at the end. Months before the end of the year, if that. So Toto doing contracts late on is not something new. And I just think that's the way he wants to do things. And George is just going to have to accept it and accepts the discomfort that comes with that. Just ask Valtteri. Valtteri always wanted a multi-year and never got it. And while Max is potentially available, and George said it himself, Mercedes have to consider him, absolutely. I think, I said it a million times before, I think, Max, stay put for 26, see what Red Bull can give you. You will maximise whatever they will give you, and then you will know, right, boom, this team definitely can't be a competitor at the front. And therefore, I have to then look at, all right, who are the teams smashing it? Is it, do Williams deliver something unbelievable and then Max wants to go to Williams? Maybe. It could happen. It actually could happen. Or Max does see potential at Red Bull and okay, fine. Maybe 27, we might be second, third quickest car. Maybe 28, we might be quickest. I'll give you that. Because I do believe that he would like to finish his career at Red Bull Racing. But if that team can't give him the hardware to do it, then he's not going to stay. But yeah, so George, I think George has been so good this year. I don't think he did so well to be so close to pole even on Saturday, and in the races, they took risks and they didn't pay off. But I think all in all, George has been impeccable this year, driving wise. He's just been so good. And then Antonelli, he's just unlucky getting punted. Obviously, taking that 3-place grid drop from last race. I just feel the same about Antonelli as I do Behrman. They've proven their 1-lap prowess already. They've proven that they can already have very high, sharp peaks. But also they've proven they can have stinkers. So, and that's a rookie. That's kind of what, as long as you can see those high points, right, okay, cool. So right now it's going do. If we can just go do, and then do, and then eventually we just get the bangers, boom. That's experience, right? And I think, again, Bortoleto, Behrman, Antonelli, they're good. They are good for time. They are good for Chuck Hadjar in that as well. Absolutely. Isaac. What a lad. What a lad he is. Aston Martin. Alonso definitely wanted more. Alonso was definitely frustrated, wasn't he? He was kind of alluding that, Lance gets all the decent strategies. What about mine? I think Fernando's kind of, again, that's in his wheelhouse to kind of get a little bit tetchy on the radio, you know what I mean? So that's just how Fernando is. But yeah, I do wonder. It's the whole Alpine stuff, linking in with Alpine, meetings with Briatore. I wouldn't be surprised still, I really wouldn't. If there is a real genuine belief that, like, damn, Mercedes engine or Honda engine, but not all of the Honda staff who used to work on the Red Bull engine, because a lot of them went to Red Bull powertrains. Newey on chassis, cool, but it's like Max in a Red Bull for years, great chassis, but Mercedes had that engine advantage, and who won all those titles in 17, 18, 19, 20? It was Lewis. So that's a decision for Fernando to make. But I want to see Fernando Alonso, George Russell in the same team. That's at Aston Martin. That would be immaculate vibes. And then Lance can, the Valkyrie Le Mans project. Boom. Perfect. I think he'd probably win races. He could win 24-hour Le Mans. Mate, Brendan Hartley, if he can do it, like Giovinazzi can do it. Like, there's plenty of decent F1 drivers who can thrive in other categories. That's what I want to see. That'd be amazing. That would just fit the vibe check would be great with Alonso, George, and Aston Martin. Would it happen? Probably not. But yeah, I think Lance had a good race as well. You credit to Lance. He put in a good performance of running P3 for a lot of it. Struggled with the tyres towards the end. Aston's strategy with him seemed a bit, what are you chucking him on slicks for a bit here? But it actually paid off. So again, they were quite experimental with Lance's strategy, but it checked out. It checked out. So, and I don't think that's insulting to other wet drivers at all. Like, Lance Stroll has multiple podiums in Formula One. Yes, he's being beaten week in, week out by Fernando Alonso, but Fernando Alonso is one of the greatest of all time. So, actually, I think that I understand where a lot of the criticism for Lance comes from because of what he represents ultimately. And also he doesn't give anything basically to media and can come across as a bit, not great. But as a driver, he can deliver, and he has done it many a time. It's just nowhere near as much as he should be doing, especially at his age as well, because he's still very young. But yeah, all in all, double points. Aston Martin step forward somewhat. Newey's gonna be cooking 26 stuff at the minute, but I just worry that just last year, man, every upgrade was a side grade or a downgrade. You know what I mean? It was, and that is a problem. So I hope they've got on top of that. I really do. And then finally, Red Bull Racing. I really hope that, Yuki had potential for more in qualifying, and that this power issue that Yuki had was significant, because I need to be seeing some development and progress from Yuki in that Red Bull car, because I've always wanted him to succeed, and he's finally got that seat and that opportunity, and things have just, they're just not progressing. But also the car is a bit of a bastard, isn't it? It just is. Max is saying it. He's not happy with it. It isn't in a good place. It isn't in a dominant place. It's tricky. And if even Max is struggling with it, and again, Checo had his fair share of complaints that, weren't acted on because Max was driving around the issues. And you can kind of understand that logic. But when you're not on top, then that kind of gets exposed a bit. So, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult position to be in. They gave Max a huge task by, taking all the downforce off that car. Great for qualifying. Boom. Puts it on pole. But, once the heavens opened, Max's chances just disappeared. And it's going to be a long season. I think the championship's gone. Like, it's just now damage limitation. Max will still want to win every single race, in the same way that when he was dominating, You know, in 23, when he lost that race in Singapore, where he had to box early because they didn't have enough fuel in the car, he was fuming. He was livid because he didn't want to give away a single one. And the same, now that the championship's not on, Max still wants to win every single race. Every single Grand Prix. But yeah, it's now been, 5 drivers now, alongside Max Verstappen, who can't, it's not that they just can't get close to Max, it's that they are finishing behind everyone else. Like, Yuki qualified P5 in Australia in a Racing Bulls. Like, do you remember that? Like, he would, objectively, Yuki would be quicker over a lap and in a race, in a Racing Bulls, than he would be in this Red Bull. And that's crazy. Because we know the ceiling of the Red Bull. And I don't think the ceiling of the Racing Bull is higher than the ceiling of the Red Bull. I don't think Max would drive the Racing Bull quicker than the Red Bull. No, definitely not. But like, we're in a position now that every one of the second seaters, that is the case for them, that they would be quicker in the Racing Bull. And you have one car with a decent operating window, and you look at McLaren, you look at Ferrari, you look at Mercedes, all these cars are difficult and tricky. But Antonelli is, 3/10 off George on average and put on sprint pole qualifying. Piastri is now quicker than Lando on average over a lap. Lewis is within 1/10 of Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. They just need to make sure this isn't the case next year, because they can't rely on Max being there forever. And that is what has become abundantly clear. Right. Okay, we've been live for 1 hour and 47 minutes. Damn, this is a long pod. Long. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Daniel, Xavier, Reef, Faith, Rudy, David, Gus, Bailey, Drift, John, Ian, Wulong, Alex, Gus, Daniel, Freya, McFillan, David, Lillian, Yard Animal, Yondre, Joe, John, Inequity, Vicky, Astronomical, Cindy, Awkward, MMA. Thank you all. Appreciate you all taking the time. Have we got any super chats I've missed? No, I think we're good. I think we covered all that. Lovely. Thank you. This was fun. I need to go to the toilet, to be honest. TMI to 2,000 people, but just being honest. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to work on my video tomorrow and probably get it out on Tuesday. So make sure you subscribe to the Tommo YouTube channel if you are here on YouTube and like the video. Or if you're audio only, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, then rate, comment, 5 stars, lovely jubbly. Glaze me, tell me I'm great. Follow me on Instagram at Tommo McCluskey as well. I'm posting a lot more on Instagram now because I want to. And I should have started ages ago, but I didn't because I'm lazy. But now I'm trying not to be. So there you go. That's a wrap. Next time out, we've got Spa, but we've got 2 weeks off. So yeah, video on Tuesday. Then it will be mid-season report soon. So I will be putting out a poll at some point in the next week or so, looking for you to rate all the drivers based on the first 12 races of the season. And then we will have your driver ratings, my driver ratings, blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be a fun one. So again, make sure you subscribe and follow me and do all that good stuff so that you don't miss them. We're now done. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.